Hello and welcome to Joy in Our Town. I'm Sherry Duckworth. Joining me today is Dr. Shelette Stewart. She's the Director of Executive Education at SMU Cox School of Business. Thank you so much for being here today, Dr.
Thank
Stewart.
you for having me, Sherry. It's a pleasure.
We would love to start off today's program with just getting to know you and hearing about your background. I would love to hear about, your personal educational pursuits and what your experience has been, and just in the world of education and what you've done.
Sure, absolutely. Well, I actually grew up in Dayton, Ohio. I have a younger brother, and we grew up in a household where we heard the mantra of go to school to get a good job. So that was actually, Sherry, our first introduction to the importance of higher education and the link to success. And so that's what I did. I pursued higher education, got my master's, got my doctorate, and most of my professional experience has been serving in leadership roles in sales, marketing, and strategic planning for some wonderful organizations like Bell South, which is now again AT&T, as well as the Coca-Cola Company. And I'm blessed to serve in a leadership capacity with SMU Cox School of Business now.
That's a wonderful background. It's
Thank
colorful
you.
And so full of just life, and you've had such wonderful experiences and worked for great companies. So I think that you're a wonderful example to those who are watching today.
Thank you. And I had wonderful examples growing up in my family as well as in the school system and just in society in general. It's important to have those examples.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think it gives us it gives us inspiration.
It does.
It really does. And today we're talking about minorities and the influence of education on them. And obviously, education played a huge role in your life. And how important is it for us today to help society understand that minorities sometimes have some cultural or some differences, maybe that it's sometimes kind of a touchy question, because people don't want to say, well, why is it different for minority going to school, or why is it a subject that we have to face differently than if you're not considered a minority?
Sure. Well, it's actually an extremely important topic. The U.S. Department of Education, as well as Harvard Business School and SMU, all have reported that between the years of 2015 to 2020, minorities will comprise 1/3 of the U.S. population. So that's a significant percentage in terms of our society, and minorities will actually assume a higher proportion of the workforce. So if you think about it from a societal standpoint, it's critical. It would behoove us to focus on a significant, substantial part of our society, because it has social implications as well as economic ramifications if you consider the buying power of the minorities. So it's critical for us in terms of our society long term.
And in your experience, how has this played into your experience in education with working with minorities?
Sure. I authored a book called Revelations in Business. It's all about connecting your business plans with your purpose, your career with your calling. And Dan Cathy, who, as you know, is the president of Chick-fil-A, has endorsed the book, and so many other business leaders. Well, what that's done is it's caused me to have the wonderful experience of not only speaking to Fortune 500 companies, but also to colleges and universities. So I'm spending more time sharing those insights with a younger generation. So youth in general, as well as minority youth. So that's one aspect. In terms of SMU, the university itself has so many wonderful outreach efforts to youth and minorities to expose them to higher learning and also to the environment at SMU. But when you consider my division of SMU, my department, SMU Cox School of Business, we actually have a Latino leadership initiative. So it's a strategic initiative focused on that demographic, and it actually includes a partnership with the National Hispanic Corporate Council. So it includes a corporate executive development program for high potential Latino managers from Fortune 500 companies, where they'll come and take leadership classes and programs at SMU. And we've decided to focus on that particular demographic, Sherry, because one, it's the largest minority in the United States, and two, it's the fastest growing minority population. So from a strategic standpoint, I've been involved with so many different experiences and initiatives around minorities. And from an SMU vantage point, we focus on that particular demographic because it behooves us. Our goal is to always be on the forefront of socioeconomic trends, and that's a huge one in our society in general. But also we offer customized multicultural programs around leadership, whether it's African American, Asian American, women's leadership, or just general market leadership.
How important is it, in your opinion, for our students who are minorities to have someone to look up to that's in the same minority as they are?
I believe it's so important. In fact, I commend you for having a program that focuses on this particular topic, because for the viewers who may be watching, may be tuning in and may not have that role model, that's so critical. So I would encourage the viewers to look beyond their families if you do not see that role model in place, and look to the society at large. Teachers, principals, leaders in the business community, pastors, ministers, and read about some leaders, because that's so critical. It was critical for me from a personal standpoint to see people who looked like me doing and involved in so many of the initiatives that I'm passionate about too. So that is very critical. And what wonderful society, do we live in, where there's so many people of color, so many people in general who are doing so many wonderful initiatives that we can look to.
It's a wonderful, colorful world.
It is.
And it's wonderful that way. And I agree with you. It is inspiring to see someone else. For me, as a Hispanic woman, to see another Hispanic woman,
Sure.
on television, and to look up to them and to have somebody to admire and to ask questions to. And there's just something different about it. You can relate because you see yourself.
Exactly. It resonates with you. There's that connection. And for the younger demographics, they look and say, okay, if she can do that, if he can do that, then perhaps maybe I can as well.
And that's wonderful. So I hope that there's young women watching today
now. Exactly.
who are inspired by you.
Exactly. And you.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. It is encouraging to hear that, because I think that society puts a negative kind of connotation on focusing on the minority, if you're in the minority groups or not. And there shouldn't be anything negative about it. There should be a pride about, this is who I am, this is our group, this is where we come from, and that it's not exclusive, it's actually more inclusive.
Absolutely.
In my opinion. What has been your experience with that subject?
Oh, I agree with you. So it's something that we can be proud of in terms of heritage and appreciate, but also there's an economic driver associated with it. There's so many reports, and one that immediately comes to mind was conducted back in 2009 by Forbes magazine, that shows that innovation is good for our society. Innovation enhances society and strengthens our economy. Well, one of the best drivers of innovation is through diversity. Diversity in your workforce. And so that's diversity in terms of ethnic diversity, but also, Sherry, diversity of thought, diversity of perspective and approaches to business. And so there's an economic driver in terms of this whole appreciation around minorities and different demographics as well.
How important is it for students to be exposed to multiple cultures and to multiple minority groups? The reason I ask this is just because there is definitely a difference from how I grew up to how things kind of are now, where it is a much more colorful world. And so, for example, my children, they don't see color. It's just, everyone's just a person. As we're growing up, there was a little bit of a difference, and you did notice things a little bit more. But because the demographics have changed so dramatically, and because, for example, the Hispanic group has grown larger, it's not an abnormal thing to have minorities around you all of the time, and we don't always stop to think about it. So what is your opinion on making sure that our students and our children are exposed to all cultural groups?
Well, I think that's an excellent point, Sharon. If you think about it, here we are having this discussion when we have the first African-American president of the United States. So I believe it's actually all right to see color and appreciate color. It's all right to be proud of our heritage, not just as individuals, but also as our country as well. We've come a long way. So I think that's something that we can be joyful about as well, too. And so I would encourage others to immerse yourself, not in just your culture, but other cultures as well, because the world, the global economy, and the global society truly is browning, so to speak. And that's all right. That's wonderful. So it means that we must have an appreciation, not for our own ethnicities, but also the ethnicities and the heritage of others. And that just makes us stronger as a community.
I like the way you put that. I think that's very inspiring. It's a good way to,
Thank you.
a good perspective, a good way to look at things. when it comes to practical ways our viewers can get involved in learning more about other minority groups and even their own, if they've really never stopped to think about it, in what ways can they do that? In what ways can they do that will help inspire them when it comes to reaching out, let's say, to groups on education?
Sure. Another excellent point. For those viewers who are parents, I would definitely encourage them to be very intentional, be very proactive in taking a very interactive approach to their child's education. And that goes for youth in general as well as minority youth. It's so critical for parents to be engaged. So make sure that you're involved with the PTA and going to the parent-teacher conferences. That's so important. For the general viewers, people in the workplace and in the marketplace, a couple of thoughts. One, make sure that you're supporting your local school systems. They oftentimes have fundraising initiatives, and they need those initiatives because they've had to cut back on so many wonderful programs, as you know, Sherry, arts, music, physical education. And so support your local school systems. Also, share your wisdom with other youth. Mentor youth, whether they're in your family or maybe in the workplace just starting their careers. Take some time to truly reach out and mentor a new generation. And then last but not least, make sure that you're focused on positive initiatives such as designing and developing scholarship programs, fellowship programs, internships. You know, you can establish a scholarship in the name of someone in your family who's passed on, and you may want to keep their legacy going. And so what a wonderful way to establish a scholarship in that person's name that can perhaps help another student who needs those resources. Or if you're in the workplace, design an internship program so that people and youth are exposed to business. So there's so many wonderful, creative, innovative ways that we can really help minority youth as well as youth in general.
I think that's wonderful, and it's very encouraging to hear that. And you've given us some really great ideas today. I do want to talk to educators a little bit today, since you work with educators on a regular basis and talk with them and interact with them at the school. How important is it for educators to be familiar with the different cultural habits and backgrounds of the minorities that they are working with in order to influence them in the right way? Is there a difference in how they would react and respond to different minority groups? Does it make a difference?
It does make a difference, and it's something that educators as leaders in our societies must always be cognizant of. You know, there are similar and several initiatives that really touch on that subject that I think are wonderful initiatives, and I always reinforce with educators when I'm speaking in public about certain initiatives, and some of those initiatives involve actually STEM initiatives, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, wonderful initiatives that I would encourage the educators who might be viewing today to stay focused on that, because again, if you consider it from a global perspective, the United States falls low compared to some of our Asian counterparts. So continue to focus on STEM initiatives. Also, another principle or practice is around what I call early intervention. Make sure that as an educator that if you have access to those parents before they've even given birth, make sure you reinforce the importance of being engaged with your child's education. And also early intervention in terms of preschool. If you see some challenges, make sure that we have the resources as a society to be able to address them. And last but certainly not least, teachers. Sourcing excellent, passionate teachers are important, not just for minority youth, Sherry, but also for youth in general.
Youth in general, I agree.
Exactly.
You've brought up some great points today and have taught us so much just by being here. Thank you so much, Dr. Stewart.
Thank you for having me, Sherry, and congratulations on the excellent platform you have in place.
Thank you, and thank you all for watching Joy in Our Town.